Hello and welcome to the Senior Advocate Caregiving Series sponsored by Commonwealth Assisted Living. This series is made up of 5 short videos to help families communicate with their loved ones who have dementia. My name is Stephanie Smith and I'm being joined by Jeff Gruber. Jeff is the Director of Memory Care at Commonwealth Assisted Living, and today we will be discussing reliving history through artwork. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Jeff, in the later stages of the disease, whether it be dementia or one of the dementias such as Alzheimer's, communication seems to be an issue. The person with the disease has a hard time communicating, especially verbally. Can you give some tips to the families out there that might be dealing with this type of situation?
Definitely, Stephanie. As you had mentioned, unfortunately, as the disease process does advance, communication does become more of an apparent barrier. And I brought some examples of some of the artwork today that demonstrates how important and how valuable artwork continues to be when you're working with a loved one or your spouse. If I can have you lift up the picture of the family member on the end, right next to you there, this actual individual had an opportunity to actually recreate a memory talking about her childhood and when she grew up. And as you can see, she was one of 7 children. But at the time of this exercise, she actually, in her mind, was the only child in that family.
Which is her right
Which
here.
is her right there at the corner, yes. Which is very important. In her mind, once again, that let us know where she was at that moment in time whenever we actually had this art session. Another piece I brought with me today is of the car. And you can see this gentleman, that was his very first vehicle. Mm-hmm. So once again, we're reminiscing about your first car. I'm actually initiating the conversation by saying, tell me about your car. My first vehicle was. And if I'm patient enough and as I'm working one-on-one with a family member, this is the end result. So he very clearly remembers his first vehicle, which was in 1929.
I think the challenge for some families when it comes to artwork is that they're not really sure how to initiate that conversation and how to actually get them to create this artwork that seems like it's very meaningful to the person that has dementia. Tell us a little bit more about some of these other examples and how did you get these people to do this type of artwork?
What's nice about this exercise, Stephanie, is that it's nothing you have to really create. Once again, you're tapping into someone's memory. The next example is basically a beach scene. And all we demonstrated was talking about the vacation. Whenever we went on vacation, we went to the beach. And the artist was actually able to reach and create the sand, the sun, and the water. Whenever I worked with a family member regarding the war, this actual picture demonstrates a period of time during World War II, where I was discussing what's important to you. And I was able to identify that this individual actually was in a wartime period and actually worked with General MacArthur, which is very powerful. As simple as watching the weather, I was sitting with a loved one outside on a patio, and the weather actually changed. We went from a sunny day to clouds, and then eventually high winds. The leaves were blowing, umbrellas were blowing over, and you can see this particular artist actually was able to express herself through her art by deliberately choosing the black paint and scrubbing with a sponge to get this impression of the storm. As residents or family members are aging in place, they lose the ability to actually have those fine motor movements. So we begin to work with paintbrushes, sponges, and then finally we actually go and actually use fingers. So this next piece demonstrates one of our family members who enjoyed going to the farmer's market. And she enjoyed it so much, she actually created her favorite vegetable or fruit, which was the apples. You can see the red delicious, the Granny Smith, and the yellow. Introducing music into our art therapy, based on the music that you play, if it's soothing enough, I have a family member who actually enjoyed the music enough and she deliberately reaches for the blue, and you can see by the strokes that she uses, the calmness and the blue colors that come across in her piece. And the last artwork I brought with me today is basically a retired florist. And she enjoyed and reminisced about her floral shop. And all I did was to encourage her to paint this is I put a bouquet of flowers in front of her.
And this artwork is so beautiful. Again, it seems very meaningful to the person that created it. Does the person with dementia need to have an artistic background?
That's what's nice about it. You don't have to be an artist to do this. What you're setting the stage to do is just based on creating the memory. The communication becomes very powerful because as you're talking to them, they actually will reach for the colors and the paintbrushes or the actual mediums to create the artwork.
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming today. We've been talking about reliving history through artwork. Please join us on our next video when we will be discussing caring for the caregiver.